Doyen Park stood in the center of the massive chamber and tried not to show fear. Above him, 15 alien species sat in their council seats, each one looking down at the lone human representative. The chamber was designed to make visitors feel small, and it worked. Crystal walls stretched up hundreds of feet, catching the light of 3 different suns that shone through the transparent dome. He had known this day would come. For 3 months, the Galactic Council had debated humanity's fate. Now, the verdict was ready. The council speaker, a being that looked like flowing water held in a vaguely humanoid shape, raised one limb. The chamber fell silent. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council," the speaker announced. The words echoed in the vast space. "You have 1 standard year to remove all settlements, stations, and military installations beyond your home system. Failure to comply will result in forceful removal." Doyen felt his stomach drop, but he kept his face calm. "May I ask what charges warrant such action?" A reptilian council member leaned forward. 37 counts of unauthorized expansion, 14 instances of cultural interference with developing species, refusal to limit military growth, aggressive colonization tactics. Need I continue? "Those charges are exaggerated," Doyen said carefully. "We have followed—" Silence. The speaker's voice cut through the air like ice. "The decision is final. Humanity expanded too quickly, pushed too hard, and refused to accept limitations. You are dangerous. You are expelled." Doyen wanted to argue more, but he could see it in their eyes. All 15 species. It wasn't really about the charges. It was about fear. Humanity had gone from primitive planet-bound creatures to spacefaring civilization in less than 2 centuries. The council species had taken thousands of years to reach the same level. They saw humans as unpredictable, aggressive, and worst of all, fast learners. "We will comply," Doyen said finally. He bowed, turned, and walked out of the chamber with his head high. Behind him, he could hear the council members already talking about other business, as if humanity had never mattered at all. 3 hours later, Captain Minho Choi received the transmission at Lunar Command, Earth's orbital defense headquarters. He read the message twice, then slammed his fist on the desk hard enough to make his coffee cup jump. 1 year, he muttered. They give us 1 year to abandon everything we built. His second in command, a young officer named Yuna Song, stood nearby. Sir, we have 847 settlements across 42 systems. We have mining operations, research stations, entire colonies with millions of people. How can we possibly evacuate all of that in 1 year? We can't, Minho said quietly. Not safely. There will be deaths, lots of them. He pulled up a star map on his screen. Red dots marked every human presence beyond Earth. There were so many. Get me a secure line to the president. Immediately. President Sumin Kang's face appeared on the screen minutes later. She looked tired, like she had been crying. You've heard? Yes, ma'am. What are our orders? I don't know yet, she admitted. The most powerful person on Earth, and she looked lost. The Security Council is meeting now. China wants to fight. The European Federation wants to negotiate. Africa and South America want to comply. Everyone's screaming at each other. With respect, ma'am, we don't have time for politics. The Council will enforce this. Their peacekeeping fleets are already moving into position around our colonies. Sumin nodded slowly. I know, but there might be another option. Dr. Ji-won Han wants to speak to the Council. She says she has a proposal. The Prometheus Initiative Director? What does she want? She wants us to withdraw voluntarily, completely, but on our terms. Minho frowned. What does that mean? I think you should hear it from her. I'm patching her through now. The screen split, and Dr. Ji-won Han appeared. She was in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that seemed to see right through people. The Prometheus Initiative was Earth's most classified research program, so secret that even Minho only knew rumors about what they did. "Captain Choi," she said, "how long would it take to evacuate every human beyond Sol System if we had unlimited transport and zero interference?" 30 years, minimum. We'd need every ship we have working non-stop. And if we had interference? If the Council attacks settlements that don't leave fast enough? Minho's jaw tightened. Then we'd lose millions, maybe hundreds of millions. Exactly. So here's what I propose. We withdraw, all of it. Every station, every colony, every mining operation. We bring everyone home. That's surrender, Minho said. No, Jiwan said with a small smile. That's strategy. Captain, what do you know about human history? Real history? Not the sanitized version? I know enough. Then you know humanity's greatest achievements came when we were isolated, when we had our backs against the wall. Ancient Korea developed advanced astronomy and medicine during periods of isolation. Japan's culture flourished during 2 centuries of self-imposed exile. Sometimes, stepping back is how you move forward. You want us to hide in Sol System? I want us to consolidate, to build, to learn. Captain, we've spread across 42 systems in less than a century. We did it fast, but we did it sloppy. We never stopped to perfect anything. We just kept expanding. What if we took time to actually master what we've learned? What if we brought back every piece of technology, every cultural exchange, and every lesson from every colony and actually studied it all? Minho leaned back in his chair. The Council would watch us. Let them watch. They'll see a defeated species licking its wounds. They won't see what we're really doing. President Kang spoke up. Dr. Han has shown me some of the Prometheus Initiative's work. Captain, if we had 30 years of uninterrupted research and development, with all our resources focused on Sol System, we could achieve things the Council has never imagined. Or we could waste 30 years while they get stronger, Minho countered. They're already stronger, Jiwan said bluntly. They've had thousands of years, but they've also been stagnant for thousands of years. They don't innovate anymore. They don't have to. We do. That's our advantage. Minho looked at the star map again, at all those red dots representing human dreams and ambitions. Then he looked at the single yellow dot at the center, Earth, Sol, home. Everything humans had ever been came from that one small system. If we do this, he said slowly, we'll need total coordination. Every ship, every resource, every person working together. No politics, no national interests, just survival. That's exactly what we need, Suman said. A unified humanity. The vote happens tomorrow, Jiwan added. The UN Security Council will decide, but I wanted you to understand the real plan first, Captain, because if they approve this, you'll be the one coordinating the largest evacuation in history, and you'll be the one keeping it secret that we're not giving up. We're preparing. Minho Choi looked at both women on his screen. Then he looked out his window at Earth below, blue and green and beautiful. Humanity's cradle. Maybe it was time to come home for a while. If the vote passes, he said, I'll get it done. Every human back to Sol System. And God help the Council if they ever realize what a mistake they made. The screen went dark, and Minho sat alone in his office, already planning an exodus that would reshape human history forever. Outside his window, Earth continued its eternal spin, waiting to welcome its children home. The evacuation began on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Captain Minho Choi watched from Lunar Command as the first wave of transport ships left orbit, heading toward the outer colonies. Each ship carried supplies, medical teams, and equipment needed to begin the largest migration in human history. It was called Operation Homecoming, but everyone knew what it really was. a retreat. The first year was chaos. Admiral Taiyang Ryu, now in charge of coordinating fleet movements, had divided the evacuation into phases. Closest colonies first, then working outward. But people were scared. Some colonists refused to leave their homes. Others packed everything they could carry and begged for earlier transport. Engineer Nari Zhong stood on the surface of Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon, watching families board evacuation ships. She was supposed to be supervising the dismantling of the mining equipment, but she couldn't stop watching the faces. Children who had never seen Earth. Old people who had spent their lives building these colonies, all of them leaving. "Engineer Zhong," her assistant called. "We have a problem." She turned away from the evacuation ships. "What now?" "The council monitoring stations are questioning why we're bringing so much equipment back. They say we should leave the mining rigs here." Nari smiled coldly. "Tell them the equipment is personal property. We paid for it, we're taking it. If they want to argue, they can file a complaint." The assistant looked nervous. "They might attack us." "They won't, not yet. They want us gone peacefully. It looks better for them." She pulled out her datapad and checked the schedule. "How much have we processed?" 70% of the mining equipment is already on its way to the asteroid belt. The rest will be shipped within 2 weeks. Good. Make sure nothing stays behind. Every tool, every computer, every piece of technology. We take it all. This was the secret part of Operation Homecoming. Yes, they were evacuating people. But they were also gathering everything humanity had learned in 42 star systems. Every innovation, every discovery, every piece of alien technology they had traded for or studied, all of it was coming home. Dr. Hyun Lee packed up his laboratory on New Sol, a colony planet in the Kepler system. 17 years he had spent here studying alien plant life. He had catalogs of genetic sequences, detailed notes on evolutionary patterns, samples of organisms that didn't exist anywhere else in known space. The council had told him to destroy it all. "Biological material cannot be transported from quarantine zones," they said. He ignored them. Every sample was carefully preserved, every note backed up on 3 different drives. When the evacuation ship arrived, he loaded everything aboard personally. If a council inspector asked, he would tell them it was personal effects. Let them try to prove otherwise. On the ship heading back to Sol system, Dr. Lee met pilot Yuna Song. She was young, maybe 25, but she had spent 3 years living with the Vren, an insect-like species that were brilliant navigators. The Vren had taught her techniques for reading stellar formations that human astronomers had never considered. "Did you record it all?" Dr. Lee asked her. "Every lesson," Yuna said, tapping her head. "And I wrote detailed manuals. If we're really doing what they say we're doing, building something new, this knowledge could change everything." All across human space, the same scene repeated. Scientists brought back data. Engineers brought back tools and techniques. Diplomats brought back cultural knowledge. Traders brought back samples of alien technology. Every returning ship was a treasure chest of information, but the council only saw refugees. 3 years into the evacuation, tragedy struck. The colony on Bright Hope refused to evacuate. 5,000 people, mostly farmers and ranchers who had spent generations building their settlement. They sent a message to Earth. "This is our home. We won't leave." The council gave them 1 week. When the deadline passed, 3 council warships arrived and burned the settlement from orbit. 5,000 people died in an afternoon. Earth received the message loud and clear. Comply or die. The evacuation accelerated. No more delays, no more arguments. People loaded onto ships even when there wasn't enough room. They left behind homes, belongings, entire lives, but they left alive. Admiral Taeyang Ryu coordinated the final phases from a command ship in deep space. He was 60 years old now, gray-haired and tired, but his eyes were sharp. On his screen, he watched the flow of ships, thousands of them, all heading toward Sol system. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we're receiving data packets from the returning science vessels. Dr. Han wants them transmitted directly to Prometheus Command." "Do it. Everything goes to Prometheus." The Prometheus Initiative had become the heart of Operation Homecoming's secret purpose. While the Council watched humanity retreat, Dr. Jiwan Han and her team were building something unprecedented. Using the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, they were constructing what looked like mining platforms and refueling stations, but they were much more than that. Professor Jinwoo Bayek worked in a laboratory hidden inside the asteroid Ceres. He was developing an artificial intelligence unlike anything humanity had created before. Not a replacement for human thinking, but an enhancement. An AI that could process every lesson humanity had learned, every mistake made, every success achieved, and help humans make better decisions. "How does it work?" Dr. Jiwon Han asked when she visited his lab. "Imagine a library that's also a teacher," Jinwoo explained. "It doesn't tell you what to do. It shows you what happened before when people faced similar choices. It helps you learn faster, avoid old mistakes, build on what worked." "We're calling it the collective memory," his assistant added. "Will it be ready in time?" Jiwon asked. "In time for what?" "For when we're ready to come back out." Jinwoo smiled. "Doctor, we have decades. This will be ready long before we need it." The evacuation took 30 years, longer than anyone hoped, but faster than many feared. The last human colony ship entered Sol system in 2217, carrying refugees from the furthest settlement humanity had established. Captain Minho Choi, now an admiral, watched it arrive personally. "That's it," his aide said quietly. "Every human beyond Sol system has been accounted for. We're all home." Minho nodded slowly. Around Sol system, the Council had established monitoring stations. They were watching, making sure humanity stayed put. Let them watch, Minho thought. Let them think we're beaten. Behind the monitoring stations, deeper in the system, the real work was beginning. The asteroid belt was now a construction zone stretching millions of miles. Stations that looked like simple habitats were actually research centers. Transport ships carried not just people but equipment to hidden facilities. And everywhere, humans were learning, building, and planning. Engineer Nari Jong supervised the conversion of 300 asteroids into what would later be called the Genesis Yards. Nobody knew yet what they would build there, but they had time to figure it out. Dr. Hyun Lee's biological research led to breakthroughs in genetic medicine. Within 5 years, human life expectancy increased by 40%. The Council noticed but assumed it was natural medical progress. Pilot Unisong's navigation techniques became standard training for all human pilots. Ships moved through space with greater precision and efficiency. The Council's monitoring stations recorded it as normal traffic patterns. Professor Jinwoo Baek's collective memory went online in 2225. It began cataloging everything humanity knew, learning from every decision made, every experiment conducted. It became the silent teacher for an entire species. And deep in the outer system, beyond Neptune, in the cold darkness where the Council's monitoring stations couldn't see clearly, Director Hana Yun began the most ambitious project of all. She reported to Dr. Ji-won Han directly, and her project had no official name. The workers called it the Legacy Project. "We're building a future," Hana said to her construction crews. "The Council thinks they stopped us, but they just gave us time to get ready. When we leave Sol System again, and we won't be the same species they exiled. We'll be something they never expected." From Earth, President Suman Kang looked up at the stars and smiled. Her hair was white now, her term as president long over, but she still lived to see the results of her decision. Humanity wasn't scattered anymore. They were focused, unified, and building. The Council had tried to stop humanity's expansion. Instead, they had taught humans the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes you have to step back to leap forward. The exodus was over. The real work was just beginning. 270 years passed. To the Galactic Council, Sol's system became a footnote in history, a problem solved, a threat contained. Their monitoring stations at the edge of the system reported exactly what they expected to see. Radio transmissions, energy signatures, ship movements, all perfectly normal for a species that had accepted its limits. The Council didn't realize they were seeing exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Captain Sora Lim was born in space, lived her entire life in space, and would die in space. She commanded the Ark Eternal, one of the first true generation ships. It wasn't designed for war or exploration. It was designed for living. 30,000 people called the Eternal home. They had schools, parks, farms, and factories. Everything needed for life, contained within a vessel 10 miles long. "Captain, we're approaching the construction zone," her navigator said. Sora looked out the viewport at the massive structure ahead. It looked like a flower made of metal and light, petals spreading across space. Each petal was a habitat ring. The center was a power core that drew energy directly from the sun using collection fields that stretched for thousands of miles. "Beautiful," she whispered. "How many people can it hold?" "When complete, 5 million, and it's just one of 12 being built." Humanity wasn't building ships anymore. They were building mobile worlds. The Council's monitoring stations saw the construction, of course, but they interpreted it as defensive platforms or large space stations. They didn't understand that these weren't military installations. They were arcs, ready to carry humanity anywhere in the galaxy, independent of any planet. In the genetic laboratories deep inside Mars, Dr. Wu Bin Han worked on what some called the Adaptive Project. He wasn't creating new humans or changing fundamental biology. He was activating switches that already existed in human DNA, switches that had evolved over millions of years but had been turned off. "Explain it to me again," Director Hana Yun said during an inspection. "But use simple words." Wu Bin smiled. "Humans adapted to Earth's conditions over millions of years. But we carry genetic code for different conditions, too. It's there, waiting. I'm learning how to activate it safely. So you can make humans who survive different gravity, different atmosphere? Not make. Unlock. The ability is already there. We just forgot how to use it." "Show me." Wu Bin led her to a window looking into a testing chamber. Inside, a volunteer named Minjun worked in conditions that would kill a normal human: high radiation, low pressure, temperature extremes. "He's been living like that for 6 months, Wu Bin said. "His body adapted, skin thicker, blood chemistry changed, metabolic rate adjusted. If we moved him back to Earth conditions, he would adapt back. It's not permanent change, it's flexible response." "This will change everything," Hana said quietly. "That's the idea. If we can live anywhere, adapt to any world, we won't need Earth anymore. We won't need any specific planet. Humanity becomes truly spacefaring." Far from Mars, in the deep cold of the outer system, physicist Dr. Aaron Zhou solved a problem that had haunted scientists for centuries: artificial gravity without exotic matter. The Council's best minds had failed to crack it for 5,000 years. Aaron did it in 17 years. Her secret. She stopped thinking like an alien. "The Council species all approached it the same way," she explained to her research team. "They tried to manipulate space-time directly, bending it like their natural gravity wells do. That requires massive energy and materials that barely exist." "So what did you do differently?" her assistant asked. "I thought about how humans do things. We don't try to recreate natural processes. We find shortcuts. We cheat." She pulled up her calculations. "Instead of bending space-time, I'm creating a field that the human body interprets as gravity. It's not real gravity. It's induced. But to anyone standing in it, the difference doesn't matter." "That's brilliant. That's human. We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we're the best at finding the easy way around hard problems." Within a decade, every human ship and station had Aron's gravity generators. The Council noticed that human ships seemed to maneuver better, that crew performance improved. They assumed it was better training. They never imagined the fundamental breakthrough humanity had achieved. Commander Hajun Kwan stood on Observation Platform 7, 15 billion miles from the sun, at the edge of human-controlled space. Behind him, the Void Monastery stretched across an asteroid that had been hollowed out and rebuilt. This was where humanity's deepest thinkers came to work in silence, free from the noise and rush of the inner system. "Welcome," he said to the new arrivals, 50 scientists, philosophers, artists, and engineers. "You'll spend the next 10 years here. No outside communication except emergencies, no deadlines, no pressure. Your only job is to think." A young physicist named Yunji raised her hand. "Think about what?" "Whatever interests you. The Void Monasteries exist because we realized something important. Progress isn't just about working faster. Sometimes it's about stepping back and thinking deeper. The Council species forgot that. They've been rushing for thousands of years and stopped making real breakthroughs centuries ago. We won't make that mistake." The Void Monasteries produced ideas that seemed impossible. Theories about faster-than-light communication. Philosophies about the nature of consciousness. Art that would later define human culture for centuries. And technology that the Council couldn't begin to understand. But the greatest secret remained hidden even from most of humanity. Director Hana Yun's legacy fleet, constructed in the darkness between Neptune and the Kuiper Belt, where the Council's monitoring station saw only empty space and occasional comets. Admiral Minho Choi, now over 3 centuries old thanks to rejuvenation treatments developed from Dr. Yun Lee's work, visited the construction site personally. He floated in his spacesuit, watching thousands of automated builders work on ships that dwarfed anything humanity had made before. "How many?" he asked Hana. 300 seed ships. Each one carries everything needed to establish a complete human civilization on any world, under any conditions. Genetic banks, cultural databases, manufacturing equipment, AI teachers, everything. Each ship is completely self-sufficient. And they can operate independently? That's the beauty of it. We don't need a home planet anymore. We don't even need Earth. Each seed ship is a backup of everything humanity is. If somehow Earth was destroyed tomorrow, if the Council wiped out every human in Sol system, these ships could restart our species on 300 different worlds simultaneously. Minho was quiet for a long moment. "You've made us immortal. I've made us resilient. The Council can't threaten us anymore because there's no single point of failure. Humanity is no longer a species that lives on planets. We're a species that lives between stars." Back on Earth in the Prometheus Initiative headquarters, Dr. Ji-Won Han reviewed reports from across Sol system. She was 140 years old now, white-haired and moving slowly, but her mind was still sharp. "Status report," she said to her staff. "Generation ships, operational, adaptive genetics, successful in 98% of volunteers. Artificial gravity, standard across all vessels. Void Monastery research, producing results beyond predictions. Legacy fleet, 87% complete. Collective memory, AI, learning and improving daily." Ji-Won smiled. "And the Council? Their monitoring stations report normal activity. They believe we've accepted our exile. Intelligence suggests they barely think about us anymore." "Perfect. Keep it that way. We need another century at least." But they wouldn't get another century. Because something was coming. Something that would change everything. The Council didn't know it yet. Humanity didn't know it yet. But the universe had a way of forcing species to adapt or die. In the Void Monastery, a researcher named Dongwu was studying old Council transmissions when he noticed something strange. A pattern in background radiation, repeating every 7 years. He spent 3 months analyzing it before he understood what he was seeing. It was a wake. Something massive, moving through space, leaving a trail of disturbed energy behind it. Something big enough to affect entire star systems. He wrote up his findings and sent them to the collective memory AI. The AI analyzed the data, cross-referenced it with every astronomical observation humanity had ever made, and reached a conclusion that made Dongwu's blood run cold. Something was coming toward Council space, something ancient and vast, and it would arrive in approximately 13 years. He called it the Devourer event, though he had no proof yet of what the object was. His report went to Director Hana Yun, who sent it to Admiral Minho Choi, who brought it to Dr. Jiwan Han. "Can we confirm this?" Jiwan asked. "We'd need to send deep space probes beyond Council monitoring range," Minho said. "It would risk exposing our capabilities." "Do it anyway. If this is real, if something that big is coming, it will affect everyone, including us." The probes launched in secret, disguised as routine mapping satellites. They traveled for 2 years into deep space, far beyond where Council monitoring could detect them, and they found something that confirmed Dongwu's worst fears. The Devourers were real, and they were coming. Humanity began preparing for a crisis that the Council didn't even know existed yet. The question was, would they warn the Council? Or would they wait and see what happened? That decision would define humanity's legacy forever. The Council's first contact with the Devourers lasted exactly 43 seconds. 7 Council warships, each carrying 1,000 crew members, simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no wreckage, just there one moment and gone the next. Council Arbiter Veleth watched the tactical display in horror. "What are we facing?" Her military commander, a 4-armed species called the Tauren, shook all 4 limbs in distress. "Unknown. They appeared at the edge of the Helios sector, moving through Council space at impossible speeds. We sent a standard greeting. They didn't respond. We sent a warning to maintain distance. They didn't respond. We finally sent a patrol fleet to intercept. They consumed it." "Consumed?" "I don't know how else to describe it, Arbiter. The ships didn't explode. They just stopped being, like they were erased from reality." Veleth pulled up all available data on the unknown vessels. They were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. They moved in formations that seemed random, but covered vast distances. And everywhere they passed, they left nothing behind. Planets stripped of resources, gas giants drained of atmosphere. Even stars seemed dimmer after they passed. "How long do we have?" she asked. "At their current speed, they'll reach the core worlds in 6 months. Mobilize everything, every ship, every weapon, and call an emergency council session. We need to decide our response." The emergency session happened 3 days later. 15 species, all arguing at once. Some wanted to negotiate. Others demanded immediate military action. A few suggested evacuation of the most populated worlds. "We need information," one counselor insisted. "Send science vessels. Study them. Learn their weaknesses." "Science vessels?" another counselor shouted. "They destroyed 7 warships in seconds. What will science vessels accomplish except add to the death toll?" Veleth let them argue for an hour before calling for silence. "We will fight. We have no choice. The full Council fleet will engage these Devourers in the Meridian system. That gives us time to evacuate civilians from 3 dozen worlds and establish a defensive line." "And if we lose?" someone asked quietly. "Then we evacuate everyone we can to the outer territories and pray we can regroup." Nobody mentioned humanity. Nobody even thought about the exiled species trapped in their home system. They had their own problems to worry about, but humanity was watching. Admiral Minho Choi stood in the command center on Luna, looking at displays that showed the entire Council territory. Red icons marked Devourer positions. Blue icons marked council fleets moving to intercept. "They're going to lose," Captain Sora Lim said. She had traveled from her generation ship to attend this emergency meeting. "We know," Minho agreed. "The Devourers use technology the Council has never seen. We've been tracking them for 70 years. We know what they're capable of." 70 years? Commander Hajun Kwan looked surprised. "How?" Dr. Aaron Joe pulled up a star map. "Remember my work on gravity manipulation? It had a side benefit. We can detect massive gravitational distortions across incredible distances. We picked up the Devourer fleet when they were still 50 light-years outside Council space. We've been monitoring them ever since." "And you didn't warn the Council?" Director Hana Yun asked. "Would they have listened?" Minho replied. "We're exiled, contained. They think we're primitive and dangerous. If we had sent a warning, they would have assumed it was a trick or a lie." "But now they're about to die," Sora said. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant. The Council had expelled humanity, enforced their exile with violence, and never looked back. Now they faced extinction. Humanity could watch them fall. It would be justice in a way. "We have to help them," Minho said finally. "Why?" Hajun asked. "They destroyed Bright Hope Colony. 5,000 people burned from orbit because they refused to leave their homes. The Council did that. Why should we help them?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Minho said simply. "And because if the Devourers destroy the Council, they'll come for us next. This isn't about revenge or justice, it's about survival." "There's another reason," Dr. Jiwan Han said. She had been sitting quietly, listening. Now she stood, and despite her age, her voice was strong. "This is our chance to show the galaxy what humanity has become, not through conquest or violence, but through offering help when it's needed most. We can prove that the Council was wrong about us." The vote was close. 7 in favor of helping, 5 against, 2 abstaining. But the decision was made. "How do we even contact them?" Sora asked. "If we send a message through normal channels, it'll take days to reach Council headquarters." "We don't use normal channels," Minho said. He pulled out a communication device that looked like nothing the others had seen before. "The Void Monasteries developed faster-than-light communication 3 years ago. We've been testing it in secret. Now we're going to use it." He activated the device and spoke clearly. "Council Arbiter Veleth, this is Admiral Minho Choi of Earth. We know about the Devourers. We've been tracking them for 70 years. We can help." On Council Station Omega Prime, Veleth was reviewing battle plans when her communication officer suddenly shouted in alarm. "Arbiter, we're receiving a transmission from Sol system." "That's impossible. Sol is 12 light-years away. Any message would take 12 years to reach us." "Nevertheless, it's happening. Audio only. Very clear. They're asking to speak with you directly." Veleth's skin changed color, a sign of deep confusion in her species. "Put it through." When Minho's voice came through offering help, her first instinct was to refuse. Pride demanded it. But she looked at the tactical displays showing Devourer positions, and she swallowed her pride. "What kind of help can you offer?" she asked. "Evacuation for any species that wants it. Defensive technology that might slow the Devourers down. And information. We've studied them longer than you have." "Why would you help us? We exiled you." There was a pause. Then Minho said something that would be remembered for centuries. "Because mercy is stronger than revenge. Because intelligence means knowing when to set aside anger. And because humanity has learned something in our exile. The galaxy is big enough for everyone, but only if we stand together." Veleth was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "What do you need from us?" "Permission to enter Council space with our evacuation fleet. And trust. That's all. You'll have it. Transmit your approach vectors. I'll make sure our defensive systems don't fire on you." Three council species, the Neras, who lived in water, the Shendari, who were made of living crystal, and the Lumens, who communicated through light patterns, accepted humanity's evacuation offer immediately. The other 12 species refused, calling it a trick or saying they would rather die than accept help from exiled primitives. Humanity began evacuating the three willing species to prepared stations along the Devourer approach vector. Not to Sol's system, that would be too risky, but to fortified positions where they could observe and stay safe. Admiral Taiyang Ryu, now nearly 400 years old but still sharp, commanded the evacuation fleet. Hundreds of ships, each carrying thousands of refugees. The council species who had refused humanity's help watched in amazement as the exiled species moved with precision and efficiency they hadn't expected. "How did they get so many ships?" a council observer asked. "They've been building for 270 years, Veleth said quietly. "While we watched and did nothing. We thought we had contained them. We only gave them time to grow." The Battle of Meridian System began 2 weeks later. The full council fleet, over 10,000 warships, representing the combined military might of 12 species, engaged the Devourers in what was supposed to be a decisive victory. It was a massacre. The Devourers had technology that made council weapons look like primitive tools. They could phase through shields, absorb energy weapons, and move in ways that violated known physics. Within 6 hours, half the council fleet was destroyed. Within 12 hours, 3/4 were gone. Veleth watched from her command station as centuries of military power burned away in hours. "Retreat," she finally ordered. "All ships fall back to the secondary line." But she knew there was no secondary line that would hold. The Devourers were coming, and the council couldn't stop them. That's when Minho contacted her again. "Arbiter, we're ready to engage. With your permission, we'd like to try something different." "Different how?" "The council has been trying to fight the Devourers. We're going to try talking to them. They don't communicate. We've tried." "You tried using council methods. Let us try using human methods. If it doesn't work, you've lost nothing. If it does work, we might all survive." Veleth looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. She had no other options. "Do it," she said. "Whatever you're planning, do it now." Humanity's fleet jumped into position between the Devourers and council space. And for the first time in 300 years, the galaxy would see what humanity had become. Fleet Commander Yuna Song stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching the Devourer fleet approach. She was the great-granddaughter of the original pilot Yuna Song, who had learned navigation from the Vren species. Her grandmother's knowledge, passed down and refined, had helped humanity develop fleet coordination beyond anything the Council had achieved. "All ships in position," her tactical officer reported. "Dimensional anchors ready. Harmonic arrays charged. Genesis protocol standing by." "Good," Yuna said calmly. "Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to communicate." Behind her fleet of thousands of human vessels, the Council watched in confusion. Veleth had a direct communication line to the Unity. "Commander Song, your ships are just sitting there. Why aren't you engaging?" "Because the Devourers aren't our enemy, Arbiter. They're just misunderstood." "They've killed millions." "They've harvested resources, yes. But did they know those resources were claimed? Did anyone try to explain before attacking them?" On the displays, the Devourer fleet began to slow. Their massive ships, each one the size of a moon, formed a wall of darkness between the stars. "Activate dimensional anchors," Yuna ordered. Across the human fleet, devices developed from Dr. Aaron Joe's gravity research came online. Space itself seemed to solidify around the Devourers, locking them in place. They couldn't phase shift, couldn't move using their normal methods. For the first time, they were trapped. "They're trying to break free," the tactical officer said. Energy readings are off the scale. Let them try. The anchors will hold. Now, activate harmonic arrays. This was humanity's real innovation. The Council had tried to communicate using language, mathematics, even quantum signals, all methods that required the Devourers to understand Council frameworks. But humanity had studied the Devourers for 70 years. They knew the Devourers communicated through vibrations in space-time itself, patterns that most species couldn't even detect. The harmonic arrays began broadcasting, not words or numbers, but pure patterns. Rhythms that said, "We see you, we acknowledge you, we want to understand." For 17 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Devourer fleet responded. Ambassador Doyen Park, now over 300 years old, but kept alive by the same rejuvenation treatments that sustained Admiral Minho, stood in a specially designed communication chamber. Around him, screens displayed the patterns coming from the Devourers. "It's working," Dr. Jinwoo Bayak said. He was monitoring the collective memory AI, which was translating the patterns in real time. "They're responding. They're curious." The conversation happened at quantum speeds. To an outside observer, it lasted 17 seconds. But in that time, enormous amounts of information exchanged between humanity and the Devourers. Doyun learned that the Devourers were ancient, older than any Council species by millions of years. They were nomadic by nature, traveling through the galaxy harvesting the resources they needed to survive. They had encountered countless civilizations, but most were too primitive to communicate with. The few advanced species they met either attacked immediately or fled. They had no concept that planets with life were different from planets without life. To them, all matter was just matter. Harvest it and move on. But now, trapped by human technology and addressed in their own language, they were paying attention. Doyun showed them images of the worlds they had harvested, images of the civilizations that had lived there. He showed them the concept of claiming territory, of building homes, of creating meaning beyond simple survival. The Devourers found it fascinating. They had never considered that the small, brief species they encountered might have complex inner lives. It was like discovering that the grass you walked on was actually intelligent and had feelings about being stepped on. "Can they stop?" Doyun asked through the translation system. "Can they choose not to harvest worlds that are claimed?" The response was complex, but the essence was simple. Yes, if they had alternatives. That's when humanity revealed the Genesis Protocol. Dr. Wubin Han had developed it as a way for humans to terraform dead worlds quickly, but it had another application. Using genetic engineering, nanomachine construction, and advanced chemistry, the Genesis Protocol could take a lifeless planet and make it resource-rich in a matter of years instead of millennia. "We can help you," Doyun transmitted. "We can show you how to create resources instead of just harvesting them. We can identify systems with no intelligent life where you can operate safely. In exchange, you leave claimed worlds alone." The Devourers considered this. Then they made an offer of their own. They would share their star charts, maps of the galaxy going back millions of years, showing regions humanity had never dreamed of exploring. They would share their phase shift technology, their methods for traveling vast distances quickly. A trade, knowledge for knowledge, survival for survival. "We have an agreement," Doyun announced. "The Devourers will stop their advance. We're transmitting coordinates for 12 uninhabited systems they can harvest. We're also sending them the Genesis Protocol data. In exchange, they're giving us their historical charts and technical data." On the Council station, Veleth watched in shock as the Devourer fleet began to change direction, moving away from populated space toward the coordinates humanity had provided. "How?" she whispered. "How did you do it?" Minho's voice came through the communication channel. "We did what humanity does best, Arbiter. We adapted. We learned. and we chose understanding over violence. The Council fleet was in ruins. 3/4 of their military strength was gone, but the rest of the civilization was saved. Over the next 3 months, the 3 species humanity had evacuated returned to their worlds. The other 12 Council species, who had refused help, grudgingly acknowledged that humanity had saved them. President Jiwan Han, the great-granddaughter of Dr. Jiwan Han, who had first proposed the exile strategy, addressed the Galactic Council for the first time since humanity's expulsion. 300 years ago, you exiled us because you feared our growth. You saw us as dangerous, unpredictable, aggressive. You weren't entirely wrong. We were all those things. But you gave us time to become more. You gave us time to learn not just how to build better weapons, but how to build better versions of ourselves. She gestured to the displays showing the Devourer agreement. We don't want your territories. We don't want your resources. We don't want your submission. But if you want to grow again, if you want to remember what it means to evolve, instead of just maintaining what you have, we're offering partnership. True partnership between equals. The vote took 3 days. In the end, 11 of the 15 Council species accepted humanity's offer. The other 4 maintained their distance, but didn't object. A new era began. The galaxy transformed over the next century. Humanity's Commonwealth, the Council, and the Devourer Collective formed a loose alliance. The 3 species who had trusted humanity first, the Neres, Shendari, and Lumens, thrived in their new hybrid societies, combining human innovation with their own ancient knowledge. More remarkably, 7 Council species underwent what they called the Second Youth. Inspired by humanity's example, they began questioning old assumptions, exploring new ideas, pushing boundaries they hadn't challenged in millennia. Their civilizations, stagnant for centuries, began growing again. Commander Ha-Jun Quan, now leading a joint Human Council exploration fleet, discovered new regions of space using the Devourer star charts. Engineer Nari Zhong's construction techniques helped rebuild worlds damaged in the crisis. Dr. Hyun Lee's genetic research, combined with alien biology knowledge, led to breakthroughs that benefited all species. At Sol System, now the center of galactic cooperation, a monument was built on Luna. It stood where Lunar Command had once received the exile order 300 years before. The monument was simple. A wall of black stone with names carved into it. Every human who had died during the withdrawal, every life lost in the exodus, every sacrifice made in the long silence. At the base, an inscription in 47 languages. They told us to go home. We built a home worth returning to. And below that, in smaller letters, we were exiled by fear. We returned with hope. That made all the difference. Admiral Minho Choi, now over 400 years old, stood before the monument on the anniversary of the exile. He was one of the last living humans who remembered that day. Most of his generation had chosen to die naturally, feeling their time was done. But Minho had stayed, wanting to see the results of their sacrifice. Captain Sora Lim joined him. Her generation ship, the Eternal, was preparing for a journey beyond the galaxy's edge. She would spend the rest of her life exploring regions no one had ever seen. We did it, she said simply. Everything they said we couldn't do. We did it. We did more than that, Minho replied. We showed them a better way. The Council species are exploring again. The Devourers are learning to create instead of just consume. And humanity? He smiled. Humanity is doing what we do best. Growing, learning, becoming more. What do you think will become next? Sora asked. Minho looked up at the stars, at the endless possibilities spread across the night sky. Something amazing. Something the Council never imagined when they exiled us. Something even we can't predict yet. He touched the monument, running his fingers over the carved names. They died thinking they had failed. But they didn't fail. They gave us the foundation for everything that came after. Their legacy isn't just survival, it's transformation. Far above Luna in orbital space, the new generation prepared for journeys their ancestors would never have believed possible. Human ships, council vessels, and even devourer craft traveled together now, exploring a galaxy that had opened up in ways no one expected. The exile had ended not with humanity returning to what they were, but with them becoming something entirely new. And in doing so, they had changed everyone else too. On distant worlds, in deep space stations, in the void monasteries still operating at the edge of known space, humans continued to push forward. Some returned to Earth to walk the same ground their ancestors had walked. Others were born in space and never set foot on a planet. Still others were transforming themselves, adapting to environments that would have killed the original humans. But they were all still human, not because of their genetics or their appearance, but because of what they carried forward: the drive to explore, the willingness to help, the stubbornness to keep growing even when told to stop. The Council had tried to end humanity's story with exile. Instead, they had simply turned to a new chapter. And that chapter was just beginning. The legacy wasn't about ships or technology or territory. It was about hope, the simple, stubborn hope that tomorrow could be better than today if you were willing to work for it. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. And the galaxy would never be the same.